Hey everybody, this is Frankie Abertzino, and we're back with the Scoop Radio Show. Today, we are fortunate enough to have on the phone with us Cathy Antunes. She is from the Detail of Sarasota Politics at thedetail.net. And she is somebody that I actually read a lot of on. I first started following her when she was talking about the hospitals. And now we're going to have her out here talking a little bit about 2050 and her latest article where she opined about the bad county math that's out there and the housing glut that's hurting home values. Cathy, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Frank. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. What can you tell us a little bit about that article and the 2050 and some of your concerns?
Sure. Well, specifically 2050 is a plan which is an optional development plan for residential development outside the urban service boundary in rural Sarasota. What I did in that article was I took the county's data from 2010, where they documented all of the potential housing. So this is unbuilt capacity, things that have been approved or the planning department knows that residential can be built in certain places. And I took the 2010 data and then added the approvals that have taken place since then. But I also added the municipalities, the cities, because one of the major problems with the county's math in housing inventory is they have ignored the cities.
Now, why do you think that is?
It's hard for me to speculate on why that is. I mean, I think if they did include the cities, the data is so stunningly, we have such an oversupply. There's an oversupply even without the cities, but when you add them in, it makes such a clear case that the county's planning is, I don't know, it's
bad math.
Makes no sense. Bad math.
You know what? One thing I took away from your article, and I was looking at it, and I think it said something about 70,000 new homes in Northport. But then I thought I read something about there being a 50% vacancy rate down there. And to me, right there, I'm thinking, there's only, 55,000 residents there? What are you going to do with 70,000 houses, additional houses?
And listen, the history of Northport is like a microcosm of what the county is doing now. So Northport obviously went through a period where they platted all of this growth that never happened.
Right.
And Northport has languished and struggled ever since. So yes, there's 70,000 lots, platted lots in Northport that haven't been built. There's at least 10,000 units that can be built in the city of Sarasota. Probably a lot more, actually. That's a very conservative number. So right there, you've got 80,000 potential housing units in these two cities. When you add that to the unincorporated county, which right now is about 50,000 units, you're looking at 130,000 units. And the projected 10-year demand between 2015 and 2025 is 16,400 units.
Yeah, and the math just isn't adding up.
No, it's crazy.
Well, what surprises me about this? I was before I came in here, I stopped at my doctor's house, and I was, or at his office, not his house, but I told him I was going to be talking to you about 2050, and they're like, "Well, what's 2050?" And what's surprising about it is this is somebody that lives out on Border Road. They have 5 acres out there. And she's like, and I said, it has to do with development, urban development, all that stuff. And she's like, if whatever you can do to stop that building right across the street from me on Border. And I'm like, maybe if you knew a little bit more about 2050, you could have helped prevent it. But why are they so tuned out to it?
I am not sure. I know that when I was working full time and I was raising my kids, I did not have the bandwidth to pay attention to county politics, quite honestly. It was just people are busy. Your doctor's probably very busy living her life. The problem, though, is that these people are going to be eating your lunch in terms of your home's value. And if you're counting on it in the future, whether, most people's major investment in life is their home. And at some point, they're counting on that equity, whether it's through a reverse mortgage or they're going to downsize, they want to pull the equity out, or even if they want to leave it to their family. They believe they're building a nest egg. When you've got county policies that are approving such an oversupply of building, your investment's at risk.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for a lot of those people because I was heavily involved once I found out Neil was coming down to Venice and they wanted to change the zoning. Through my scoop pages, I brought it to people's attention. And, I feel sorry for these guys because they're buying these houses back whenever they purchased them. They were planning on one house per, I think it was 1 per 5 acres or something like that. And now they're changing that zoning. They're also, the way he's going to build it up, it's going to have I think it's going to have some type of impact on the Mayaca because you're going to have, 1,800 new houses with fertilizer, with all this different chemicals going into the Mayaca. It's got to have some kind of environmental impact, which concerns me too there.
Yeah, I was just it's really interesting. I was just at a conference today, a workshop run by the county called Sustainable Communities. And, one panel had to do with water quality issues. In Gainesville, when it comes to new development, and the company that's a big landowner in Gainesville, it's a forestry company, Georgia Pacific. It's now called Plum Creek. They kind of lopped off their development division and called it Plum Creek. But the forestry industry takes a really long-term view, and they understand water issues and water quality issues. So they've got policies up in Gainesville which address the very issues you're bringing up, water usage and also the over-fertilization.
Pesticides.
We're not doing that here. And the really crazy thing about all this development is we don't need it. I mean, we should be developing inside the urban service boundary where we already have infrastructure investments and capacity. And, these policies benefit a handful of developers. They really hurt the pocketbooks of the taxpayers and homeowners in Sarasota County.
Yeah, and, one thing that's hitting the taxpayers and the current residents of Sarasota County is these impact fees.
Right.
I mean, they're practically waiving them, it seems like, and that's what's paying for the roads, the schools. I think when Neil came out here by border, I think the city ended up flipping the bill for the water and sewer to run out there.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Not only are we approving overdevelopment, but we're subsidizing it. It's coming out of our pocket to pay for surplus infrastructure that we just don't need. The biggest poster child for overdevelopment and the taxpayer hit to the wallet is the diverging diamond that's being planned.
Oh, don't get me going on that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a travesty. By the time we're finished with that, it'll be $80 million.
Yeah, and I think it started at $50 million, didn't it, or something like that?
Right. There's always this creep. They started off at a lower number, and then we're being told like 60 to 80. It could be $100 million by the time it's over. And the problem is all of these policies that the county will say, like this conference today, we're known for sustainability, but it's lip service, because if that were true, they would be doing the infill and the redevelopment inside the urban service boundary, creating walkable communities. We could absolutely do it. They've completely ignored that policy, and instead they're approving new subdivisions which don't pay for themselves and basically benefit those who bankroll their campaign.
Yep, and unfortunately, I got to cut it off there, Cathy, because we're coming up on a hard break. But if people want to talk to you and get more information, they can visit your site, thedetail.net. And thanks a lot for coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Frank.
All right, Cathy, thank you. Bye.
Take care.